Hello, and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown, and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Peter.
Wow, June in the garden already, Chris.
I know, and after quite an interesting May, all told, we did have a bit of sunshine, thank goodness.
Yeah, I got the barbecue going. I was
Did
very
you?
happy with that. Yeah, it's nice to see the sun again and get sunbathing.
Indeed, yeah, I spent a whole weekend doing a lot of rearrangements in my garden, sort of mid-May.
Right.
Very productive that was too. So
Excellent, because you're moving your vegetable patch closer to the house, aren't you?
yeah, that's happened now.
Wow, good stuff.
And the greenhouse, which of course we lost sadly during the winter. Hopefully a new one will be arriving during the summer to replace it. That's going to be moved up to the veg patch as well. So productivity will be all together. So
Nice one.
yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, we're into the month of June, and some nice news to start off with, Peter. In fact, great news. So
I was blown away when the email dropped into my inbox.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
yeah, we're in good company now, I think, in the horticultural podcast world. So
Apparently so, yeah.
yeah, so Rephonic, they basically produced their top 15 gardening podcasts, and we were in the top 15, which is fantastic.
Well, considering like we're next to the likes of Gardens Question Time and the Garden with the RHS, it just blew me away.
Yeah.
I was like, those are proper big names. I've never considered our podcast to be quite in the same league, but apparently we are.
Indeed, and we thank them for their their support for us, and we gave them a little plug, and we've got a nice little logo to put on our social media as well, which is nice.
Brilliant. We could get them done as badges, Chris, and then when we're doing our podcast, we could wear a badge.
Yeah,
top 15.
not quite Blue Peter, but hey, it's getting there. But it's a really nice. It's a nice compliment, isn't it? It makes it all a little bit more worthwhile for everyone.
Well, we hope you're enjoying our show.
Yes,
everyone, so thank you.
Yeah. So we're into June. Lots going on.
Busy month this month, isn't it? It's all about flowers.
Well, it is. We've got a bit of a theme going on, haven't we, Peter? But so British Flower Week, which is between the 3rd and the 9th of June, basically celebrating all the wonderful UK cut flower growers around the country. So it's their time to, pardon the pun, to bloom, isn't it? To really promote themselves. So lots of things going on. I'm sure you'll see some things in your listings in your local Facebook groups and things, what they're doing, which is good. But
that's it. Middle of the month.
Yeah,
we've got a podcast.
Yes,
all about flowers, and a local lady to hear in Buckingham who's commercially growing flowers for her flower arranging business.
Yeah, for her workshops and for people to go to do pick your own or cut your own, I suppose is the right term. So we'll be chatting to that guest later on this month.
Brilliant. And then Windsor Flower Show.
So it's on one day on the 8th of June. So this is in the Windsor Great Park, so a fantastic venue for it, and it has the usual sort of mix of showcase gardens, nurserymen, speakers, and it's very much a quintessentially British competition marquee. So a proper rosettes to be won, which is really good. And
brilliant.
Yeah, and it's got its honorary president is the good old Alan Titchmarsh. He'll be there residing on the day. So sounds like a really good event.
And also that weekend we've got London Open Gardens. So this is a chance to get to see some of the less common gardens, should we call them? I mean, they're not normally open, are they? It's a bit like the London Open weekend where they open the buildings up and you can get to see places like the Bank of England and all those wonderful places. But this is gardens, and you can get to go and view all sorts of exciting places.
Sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, certainly if you're in the capital, but if you can get there for a day to explore, obviously a lot of the community gardens, a lot of the famous square gardens as well, which are obviously
in the posh parts of town. Yes.
Indeed, yes. We're thinking Chelsea, we're thinking that area, aren't we? Yes. So, so 9 till 6 p.m. you can get a ticket there for quite a reasonable amount of money compared to some of the flower shows. And
that's London Parks and Gardens, the website, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We'll put a link on the show notes as usual.
Great.
And then the following week we're into BBC Gardeners World Live, overseas down in Birmingham at the NEC.
Now this is the one that's now combined with the food show as well, isn't it?
It is,
So you can feast and go and look at the gardens as well. So it's even bigger and better this year.
That's right, yeah. So it'll have lots of gardening inspiration, lots of information and live sort of behind the scenes of Gardeners World. And of course, you get to meet a lot of the celebrities and celebrity gardeners from the show as well. So good value for money, I would say, if you want to enjoy the food and the drink and the flowers.
Definitely. And then a bit more local to us, I suppose, Blenheim Palace, just down the road in Oxfordshire.
Yes, and this show's sort of grown over the years, hasn't it, Peter? It's certainly become quite a good date now, and obviously following on from all the bigger shows as we get into summer. So Blenheim Palace, and of course enjoy the wonderful gardens as well.
That's it. So, RHS Plant of the Year 2024 finally been announced.
Yes, so obviously the Chelsea Flower Show last month, the big winner, and it's really good actually. It's a tree this year. It's been often things like agapanthus, I think, have won. We've had a real mixture of unusual shrubs and perennials, but so the tree is Prunus starlight, and it's
a cherry, is it?
It is a cherry, yeah. Very beautiful sort of flowers, very good, obviously great for the pollinators. Flowers now, so very starry sort of flower, isn't it? I mean, they're small and they're quite unique in the flowering cherry world as well.
Put my glasses on, Chris. I'll see what they look like. Oh yeah, definitely, lovely. That's great, isn't it?
Yep, and that will be available through garden centres later on this year as well. It's it will be available through Frank Matthews. Of course, we chatted to the nurseryman of Frank Matthews earlier on in the podcast. I think season 1 or season 2, if I remember rightly.
A while ago, but very interesting podcast. That's it.
And just if you wanted to know what came in at number 2, cherry chocolate, and that's a variety of cosmos, which of course are incredibly popular bedding plants, and that's from Wetman Plants International, who do lots of wonderful plants, things like carnations and pinks. I've got a lot of respect for that company. They're real good innovators in breeding plants. So two good plants to look out for.
Excellent. And you mentioned Chelsea, the big one, big show.
There's been a lot going on, hasn't there? It's been obviously frantic as usual. Some of the big names, obviously, they're winning their gold medals. I'm sure a lot of people have already seen the coverage, on the TV and on the social media. But a couple of notables, actually. The National Garden Scheme, they picked up a wonderful gold medal with their lovely romantic. It's a very romantic garden. That's probably the best way to describe it when I saw it on the television. And it was designed by Stuart Smith, who we've mentioned many times. And another garden which got a lot of the headlines was the water aid garden, which obviously is important for water conservation. Something we've got to think very carefully about with our ever-changing climate too.
Yeah,
and in the silver gilts, the Octavia Hill Garden, which is again combined with the National Trust from Anna Maria Powell, that got a silver gilt, and again it looked very nice on the TV. Which is
were they your favourites then? Octavia and the water garden one.
Yeah, I think the water garden one's really good. Actually, it's really clever. The structure was very clever, and how it sort of dissipated down and showed the sort of the water cycle. Lots of hidden messages in Chelsea gardens, I think, and you've got to sort of read between the brief to do that. But they created some really nice ones this year. And actually, the Children's Award went to the Octavia Hill Garden, so the kids liked it. And of course, they had their own garden this year.
Yep.
Of course, they No Adults Garden, which wasn't classed for awards because it was a Royal Horticultural Society garden, but that was getting a lot of interest too. So, plenty to go out.
And obviously the house plants were, well, we've got to say, our thanks to Malvern Garden Buildings as ever.
Yep.
As today we're sat in one of their lovely buildings.
Yeah,
but
the Breeze houses. Yes.
One of their buildings was on display again, wasn't it? Full of house plants.
That's
and
right.
We've got one here at the garden centre. I mean, I spotted it the other day and thought, wow, that's quite interesting. That's a really nice modern sort of space, but equally quite classical in the same respect.
And that's the Hanley Open Side Building, isn't it?
Hanley Garden Building, which is it's a nice space, I think, and well designed there.
Yeah, but certainly the Houseplant Studios were creating a lot of stir on the TV when I looked there, and some really bright colours as well as internally with the plants. The actual buildings, bright orange, bright purple, really way out colours for Chelsea. What you wouldn't expect to see, but obviously they stood out from the crowd and were attracting a lot of attention too.
Yeah, brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah. And just a couple of other things. Our wonderful friend, the National Collection of Cosmos, Jonathan, who we chatted to last year.
Yep.
He, of course, did 2 Hampton Court flower shows and did very well. His first time at Chelsea this year, and he picked up a silver medal, so he must be pleased, yes.
That's a good accolade, isn't it?
And Ian Clark from Taylor's Bulbs, who we chatted to, they won their 31st consecutive gold medal for their wonderful display of daffodils, which, when you see daffodils in May, always makes me sort of slightly smile, because it's really clever how they can get these
them back.
Yeah.
Well, no, definitely. And our daffodils out the front of the garden centre did well this year.
They look good, didn't they?
Because we had a few bags left over, and I thought, well, I hate the idea of throwing anything away. So it was a case of, well, let's plant them up. And they did really well, even though we planted them late.
Exactly, yeah. And there is a sort of a guideline, isn't it? You don't necessarily have to be, if you get something like that, it's worth planting. Just see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was good. And the first seedling from the Sycamore Gap tree was placed in the National Trust garden at the Chelsea Flower Show. So I guess that'll stay there for a few weeks and then
they'll
move on to a new site, or do we know where it's going to go next?
We don't yet. No, the seedling was grown from the tree, which was obviously stood there for 200 years, wasn't it? In that amazing,
and then someone cut it down.
Yeah, until indeed. And Dame Judi named it Antoninus after the adopted son of the Emperor Hadrian.
Brilliant.
So it's actually got a name. That's great, isn't it? You're not going to forget that anyway. But
And I see the people who felled the tree are due to go on trial next month. So I wonder what they're being charged with, whether it's vandalism or...
I don't know, but apparently it's so severe it's going to a Crown Court rather than a local court. So that's what I heard. So... yes, I'm sure we'll find that out in the course of time.
That'll be next month's item to report on. Brilliant.
Indeed. And just a couple of roses, Peter, to finish the Chelsea round, because we always like to mention roses. The David Austin, they brought out one called the Emma Bridgewater.
Okay.
Which obviously named after the very famous, the institution, which is Emma Bridgewater, isn't it? Beautiful colour. It's certainly, but the one which caught my eye on the TV actually was the With Courage, which is a new rose bred by Peter Beales Roses, who we often stock at the garden centre here, called With Courage. It's a beautiful orange. I mean, orange, when you think about the RNLI boats, that orange.
It's such a vibrant, bright orange. I love it. It's great.
A couple of tones down from that, but it's still very brown, but it's very soft. And, in your garden, it would give you, your rose border a real bit of punch, I would say. But good luck to that. I'm looking forward to we will be stocking that, because I think it'll do really well.
And is that a smelly one as well?
It's got fragrance to it.
Brilliant. That's perfect. I love a nice smell of a rose. I think it's one of the most beautiful fragrances there is.
And we're in the month of June now, so roses are in flower. In fact, mine, I have to say, one of my roses was in flower back in May, very early this year, probably 2 or 3 weeks early. So that's a good indication of the season as it's been in the UK.
Fair enough. And bromeliads are hitting the headlines?
Yes. So this is so basically the bromeliads are obviously very popular, very exotic. We tend to think of air plants as being the most popular bromeliad these days, although when you go to the supermarket and buy your pineapple, that's
a bromeliad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, a fruit of which, So, but basically this is Walton Hall and Gardens in Warrington. They were given, I think, some money. They've basically revamped their conservatory area, and they've basically put in a sort of collection now. And it's good that they've got over 50 types of Tillandsias. And these are all being assessed by the RHS as well. So it's a proper trials ground for bromeliads, which I think is really good to have that up in the northwest of England.
Well, I like them because they're one of those plants that if they're in the right place and you remember to mist them every now and again, they do really well. They're not that hard to look after.
They do look good.
If you're looking for a plant that's pretty tough... definitely a bromeliad. Definitely,
yes. So, so that's Walton Gardens, and the trial's going to last 18 months, but it's going to be open on the 8th and 9th of June, so it'll be worth getting down there to have a look.
And growing plants should be on the curriculum.
Here.
I totally agree. I can always remember as a child we had our little sort of gardens that must have been 6 foot by 6 foot, and we were allowed to apply for one, and if you were lucky you got one of the 10 little gardens. But I know my son recently went to our local allotments.
Okay.
Where the school's got their own allotment that the church have kindly sort of given them, and they're really getting into it. They're loving it. They I don't think they really know what they're up to yet, but
No.
it's just fun, isn't it, when you're a child digging up worms and...
Oh, yeah. Maybe sowing a few seeds.
Hopefully sowing some seeds and actually getting something to grow, but we'll see how they get on with that. But certainly the government are being told by commercial nursery managers and all sorts of people that it should be back into more in the curriculum, and certainly talking to other people in the industry, the fact that college places these days to go and study horticulture in university these days is pretty much unheard of.
No, it's really, really sad, isn't it, to what it was, 30, 40 years ago. It's a different landscape. And I think this report, which it's evidence from the Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs Committee, they're saying that it should be improved. So they know there's a problem there. So it's a matter of how they're going to achieve that. And I suppose at the end of the day, it doesn't take a lot of time. Maybe it is the time. Maybe, unfortunately, curriculums are really, really full, what the young children have got to get through now. And, horticulture is something which is maybe going to be a bit of an issue. But in a way, if it gets them out of the classroom for, half an hour a week, gets them connected to nature, gets them to have a greater understanding of where their food comes from, I think it can only be a good thing.
There's nothing better than like growing a row of radish and at the end of sort of the season, not even a season with radishes. They're so quick, you can just go along and...
Exactly, yeah. It's very, very quick, yeah.
Get yourself some nice nibbly things. But
I think it's, maybe a change of government in the UK, which may happen this year.
Well, if Labour don't get in, I think something's definitely going wrong.
But the last paragraph really says the government recently rejected the House of Lords' recommendations for horticulture to be placed on the national curriculum. So it needs to move on, doesn't it? Even though people might start sort of shouting about it, there's got to be a general sea change, hasn't there? There's got to be...
Massively because otherwise we just become more and more detached from reality, and what we can grow for our plate just disappears, and we just buy everything from the supermarket.
There is one sort of sense of hope, though, I think, Peter. The young gardeners have a big Young Gardeners of Horticulture group. They have a kind of nice, noticeable niche in social media and going to a lot of the trade fairs now, the gardening trade fairs. They're getting their voice heard as younger gardeners. So maybe that would help move things on if we get a younger voice who are professionally involved in horticulture. Let's see what happens.
Definitely. And Kew are developing a new education carbon garden.
Yes, so this is basically, obviously, the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew. It's the whole idea of the carbon cycle, as we know, is the natural process of supporting life on Earth, so pretty essential. They're actually building it where what was the secluded garden, which is opposite the Prince of Wales Conservatory, and it will have the whole sort of cycle, so it will be very much themed at learning different zones and what plants and what interactions sort of happen. And it's all part of their 25 climate change resilient trees will be part of the display as well. So lots of thought are going into it long term as well.
Brilliant.
And I did sort of slightly laugh at this report. It's from Amateur Gardening magazine, learning the sounds of the underground. We're not talking about tube trains here. We're talking about what literally lives under the soil. And there's been quite a lot of research from the University of Warwick, and it's quite fascinating what these are most popular insects sound like.
What are we thinking? Worms or shrews?
Shrews, and maybe, certainly worms are said to make a sort of crunching sound as they move through the soil, so I can understand that.
As in they're munching their way through the soil.
Yes, because of course and while voles make a squeaky dog toy sound, which...
Right, okay.
That's quite, So, I don't know really where this work's going. I suppose what it's probably saying is that, your soil is a universe in itself, isn't there? There's so much
it's alive, isn't it?
Yeah. So if we can learn a little bit about what noises come from, we paint a better picture of what's happening under there as well. But
brilliant. Good stuff. That's interesting. And then long grass is benefiting butterflies.
Yeah, so this is the butterfly conservation group. They're saying that, as we know, as we've just come out of No Mow May, this is obviously an area where we can obviously encourage some long grass to allow a lot of obviously plants to produce flower, which normally wouldn't produce flower, and that will obviously increase the amount of activity of butterflies. So if you've got a little patch in your garden, you can let it get a little bit rough and wild, then that would be a benefit. Not necessarily leaving it to your lawn, but perhaps just sort of scrub areas in your garden, which would be useful. I'm just letting some of my nettles grow this year.
Okay.
Only because I'm buying them up for to be in addition to my comfrey tea.
I was going to say you're going to be making tea out of them by any chance, Chris.
There is going to be a but at least at that time, hopefully with some butterflies, may use it as a possible breeding ground as well. So I won't cut them completely back. I'll just tip them back a little bit to.
Well, you'll be pleased to hear Abingdon Park in Northampton, maybe a third of the park, has been left to go to wild meadow again this year, and it's
interesting.
The second they're cutting a sort of couple of paths through, but the majority of it, which must be, I don't know, 4 acres, I'll guess, of grassland, is all being left to go long. And yeah, I walked through there the other day with the dog, and it's really definitely far more species of flower coming back. Is it ranunculus, the yellow flower?
Yeah, ranunculus. Yeah,
I saw some of that, I think, and a few other sort of plantains that are definitely starting to re-establish themselves in the long grass there, which is good.
Yeah, no, it's good to see. And going back to the RHS, as we're talking about various things. So there's a new summer house has been set up at the RHS Gardens at Wisley.
Okay.
It's been named after the leading horticulturist Ellen Wilmot. Now, the way in Wilmot, if you like your plants, you will see the word Wilmot or Wilmotiana on lots of plants. So this lady historically has had quite an influence on a lot of the plants we've grown in our gardens in the past. She was a Victoria. She basically gardened in the Victorian Edwardian period, and she was quite. I think she was quite a forthright person. She liked to obviously she liked to really push the boundaries with plants as well. So she's almost in the league of the Gertrude Jekyll sort of range of calibre of female gardeners, which is good to hear, isn't it? And it's quite nice that they've a nice tribute to obviously a gardening luminary as she is. So yeah, good on them. I think it's a nice. If it brings the story to life, through a summer house, then that's surely a nice way to celebrate somebody. Brilliant.
And the National Trust is restoring and regenerating again.
Yes.
Is it Benningsborough?
Hall.
Benningsborough Hall in North Yorkshire.
Yeah, it was one
and that is having a revamp by Andy Sturgeon, and the Grade 1 listed Sheffield Park in East Sussex is having some Wollomie pines and Australian eucalyptus and Chilean maton trees.
Yes, I've not heard of those actually. It's a new one on me.
I don't know what a maton tree is.
And
then Anglesey Abbey over in Cambridgeshire. That's also
Yes.
on the list, isn't it? There's quite a lot of work going on.
Yeah, and I think it's all to make them effectively future-proof, isn't it? To look at the plants. We're starting to see over the last few years how obviously some plants are just not doing well, and this is the opportunity, I suppose, when you're restoring or redeveloping, to start putting in some more resilient planting, which is good, and it just means that those gardens will benefit from that and hopefully flourish for years to come.
Well, yeah, leads on nicely to our next story about Aviva, the insurance company.
Of course,
it
did.
And artificial grass, the pet hate of some people.
Indeed, yes.
Well, it's hitting the headlines. I mean, they're basically saying that a fifth of UK homeowners have already replaced or plan to switch their natural lawn with artificial grass, and a further 19% would consider making the swap. So potentially sort of 30% of people are going to give up their lawns and turn them into sheets of plastic or recycled plastic, some of it might be.
Might be, yeah.
But fundamentally, the issue that it causes is obviously mud and soil and plants absorb water and slow down runoff, whereas things like artificial grass, even though they're on beds of sand, are quite often not great for drainage and speed up the process of the rainfall just hitting the rivers and then creating floods, don't they?
They do, yes, and the fact that it's had such sort of bad press recently as well, it's always it sort of sits quite uncomfortably really with what we're hearing. But the fact is that if it's going to increase flood risk, which the headline is suggesting, that can't be a good thing. So we do need to move over to natural grass, or put down gravels or aggregates which will absorb the water.
And slow the process down. Although they are quite positive that some people are choosing to make sort of green driveways where you can have a nice sort of, was it chamomile? You can often use things like that you can drive over that will, obviously some places they're not going to do perfectly, but it makes a much better environment than sort of 10 square foot of plastic lawn.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a front garden south-facing, then you've got the opportunity to grow lots of herbs through the gravel as well. I mean, things like thymes, some of the borage, some of the balms, the sages. I mean, they will love those sort of conditions, and they won't mind being knocked about a little bit. Obviously, you've got to be a little bit careful where you position your vehicles or where your main walkways through. But
then if it's an old lawn, I suppose actually it's going to be a space that's possibly not walked on too much. So a bit of gravel and a few herbs, and well, I must say there was some lavender that was moved around in the seasonal tunnel the other day. I think they were. Is it the French lavender that sort of looks a bit like a pair of bunny rabbit ears?
Yeah, stosis. Yeah.
I mean, the fragrance, because I guess they've been knocked around and moved from one table to the next, they were a bit damaged, but they were really, the smell coming off them was amazing.
Yeah, I had a customer actually saying that all your French lavender's in flower, but your English lavender isn't. Now, that's a quite interesting observation, because obviously the English lavender is flowering at its natural time, which is sort of June, July. Whereas a lot of the French lavender
comes in earlier.
Yes. Whether it comes in earlier or it's been brought on by the growers. But it's an interesting, suddenly you've got this divide of time. But certainly the bumblebees, they seem to enjoy it just as much as the.
I know lavender always seems to be a magnet for bees and bumblebees.
Yeah.
Wherever you see it, a sort of big clump in flower, it's always covered in bees.
Yeah, such a good plant to have around the garden.
And our friend Jecka McVicker has got another award.
Yeah, fantastic. This is really good one, because it's bestowed by the Worship Company of Gardeners, which is the guild of professional amateurs involved and united in horticulture and gardens. So this comes from the real grit of gardening, of horticulture. It's something which has obviously been bestowed, and well done to Jecka to receive that.
Well, it's such an old guild. I mean, they go back to 1345, and I guess that's when gardening was considered a proper craft, I suppose, wasn't it? And that's an incredible award. And obviously Jecka's also got the Victoria Medal, is it?
Of horticulture, that's right, yeah.
She's got the most esteemed collection of accolades ever.
Yes, and justly so, yes, because she's done so much to bring the awareness of herbs in all their guises, medicinal and culinary, and really promoted them well for the gardening trade. So
she's got a new book out.
Yep,
at the moment, hasn't
that's right.
she?
Yep, the new book, which is 100 Herbs to Grow, which I'm sure we'll be
I've enjoyed reading that. Well, I haven't quite finished it. I'm still working my way through all the herbs, but the start of it's a great introduction about herbs. And like you say, hopefully back on the show with us again soon
in the not too distant future. Yes,
the Udolph landscape at Wisley. Now, this is a fairly grand. He had a space here before, didn't he? And he's just revamped it.
Yeah,
is that right?
He's done quite a lot of work with the RHS, I know, but this is a big area, isn't it? Going down to the millennial glass houses, isn't it?
At Wisley, yeah.
Wisley, yeah.
And to be fair to him, I'm a very, very, very talented designer. I mean, when you look at the image that we've got here, it does create a nice vista, and you can imagine meandering down that pathway.
Yeah.
It's lovely, whereas I think before it was a lot more straight lines.
It was a bit more formal, wasn't it? Yes, yeah. So
whereas this is more sort of curvy. So lovely.
That's really good. So they've been working on it since over the winter, and it's been completed. And a big team effort by the sounds of it. It seems like really involved there, but yeah, it'll look good, and it'll look good for many years as well. It's got a lot of shelf life in it. It's got a lot of
34,000 plants have gone into it, so it's going to take a couple of years for them to establish properly. But equally, what a bit of work that must have been for them.
Just a bit, yeah. And there's a new story here which I had to do a little double take because it's looking at the lack of collective nouns for trees. Now, if you like your nouns, if you're all familiar with a pack of dogs or a parliament of owls, or where do trees come into this? And like we were talking before we started, Peter. Yeah, we tend to think of coppices and things,
woods and
forests, I suppose.
Yeah.
But when you're specific to the species, then this is the idea that you suggest that if you've got a load of birch, the suggested term is a vanguard of birch. So if you have a big birch coppice, and then there's a few other ones, a Remedia rowan.
Yeah.
Only referring to its berries and the five-pointed star.
Yeah. Mausoleum of Yew.
Yeah.
Well, they're always in churchyards, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. So some thoughts there have gone into there, and then there's a vengeance of holly.
Yeah.
Only because
I totally agree with that one. I mean, my neighbour had a massive holly tree. Thankfully, they've chopped it down now. But whenever you went out on the patio and it was covered in old holly leaves, it was not a pleasant experience walking on them, shall we say?
Yeah.
But and then the hangover of juniper.
Yeah. Referring to the gin, I think that's clever, isn't it? So
very good.
So basically, they're encouraging the author of this report and the book are suggesting that we should have a think about this and try and get some into popular culture. So if you've got any suggestions, then let us know.
And now this one really confused me, Chris, because it says awesome gardens in Auckland. Now Auckland, I thought was New Zealand, but apparently, Bishop's Auckland is part of a historic town. Well, it is a historic town in County Durham.
That's correct. Yes,
it's quite realised.
Yeah, so it's all part of the this Market Times regeneration. It's a big project, isn't it?
They've got a castle, Auckland Castle, and a Spanish gallery, and they've created 3 gardens and this metal glasshouse structure that. Honestly, I think it's a bit like a slinky toy in design. It's apparently been inspired by things at Chatsworth, but honestly, it's great. It's awesome. Great. It's lovely, but interesting.
And 23 metres long, 5.5 metres wide, 6 metres tall. It's not what you think of a glass house, is it, at all? It's quite different.
Definitely.
But obviously putting lots of work into this, and let's see what happens over the next few years. The article in Garden News, had some artist impressions, so...
the artist impressions look amazing.
They do,
well worth a visit, I guess. They've been apparently it's been 10 years in the making, and they're hoping to finish it in 2025. So maybe next year, if you're over in Bishop Auckland in Ireland, have a look.
Yes, indeed.
And now, this article really interested me because we had a guest on not that long ago, Val Bourne, who has been gardening organically and sort of with nature, shall we say, over in the Cotswolds, very much sort of closely down the road from us. And her philosophy has always been sort of try plants. They don't grow. Don't worry about it too much. Her comments on roses is very much in line with this. And basically this article is saying that modern breeding of roses has reduced the genetic diversity and it's making the roses more vulnerable to diseases and climate change.
Yes, which sort of fits in with, like we were saying a few podcasts ago, Peter, about David Austin roses retiring certain varieties of roses because they
don't work.
They don't work, So
it's all about survival of the fittest, isn't it? Darwin and his philosophies are sort of running true in roses now. So
hopefully, so hopefully in rose breeding for the future now, that those qualities, resilience to disease, which I'm sure is still there because black spot is not a problem as it used to be, is it? To to many people, but obviously some varieties are more vulnerable, and especially if you go back, about 30 or 40 years, the varieties which were coming out from the rose breeders were very susceptible. But interesting.
Definitely. And a new plant collection in a women's prison?
Yeah, so this is Tilburgia, which is it's a relative of the onion. We get them in at the garden centre, and you always know the plant's in the perennial area because it just smells of onions, and it's quite a strong plant. It's a lovely flower on it.
Is it a bit like an allium flower?
Yes, allium flower. Yes,
okay.
but a lot different, sort of different shapes, different forms, different colours. So
right.
But it has all that. But it's been basically developed. For a national collection over, I'm just thinking,
11 species and 30 varieties. Yeah. That's quite a collection, isn't it?
Yeah. So His Majesty's Prisons at Eastwood Park in South Gloucestershire. They're taking up this wonderful project, and it's great that a national collection could be anywhere in the UK.
No, definitely, and why not? And, well, they've got time to look after them, I should imagine.
Indeed, yes.
If I'm allowed to say that. But yes, very good on them, and
learning all the skills of growing them, and obviously plant conservation, which is something which you learn that anywhere? No, I don't think you would. It's
it's very very good. And oak seeds have been it's a 25-year in the making, all this research, but the Future Trees Trust has announced that the availability of quality oak seed for the next generations are now available.
Yeah.
And selective breeding, is it, I suppose? Or just selective seed collection, in a way.
I think it's all of those things, isn't it, Peter? They just want the best seeds available to obviously move the crop, if you call it, growing a...
You don't really think of forestry as a sort of form of cropping, but really it is, isn't it? And oak is one of the slower growing trees.
Long-term projects, isn't it?
It takes a long time to sort of create an oak forest, and then a long time for obviously the timber to be harvestable.
Yes.
So I guess this is never going to have been a quick project. But they were basically, they picked some Quercus robar and the sessile oak, which is Quercus petrea. Now, Quercus robar, that's the standard oak in my eyes.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
that's your traditional
the English oak, we would call it. Yes,
that's it. And they've been trialling these two, and have found they've selected the best seeds of them, and they're now farming
them. From acorns, big oaks grow, as they say. But certainly, good bit of research.
Brilliant project.
So, King Charles III will continue to be the National Garden Scheme's patron. So this is good news. Yes. So
it was the Queen, wasn't it?
It was.
So now he's going to take over the patronage, which is, I should imagine, a great relief for the NGS because, that's a fabulous scheme that they run, and I love going and visiting the gardens. It's not long now before we'll be able to go and peer in our neighbours' gardens and see what's growing.
With their permission, of course.
Well, that's it. But open days are brilliant.
They're great.
To have the patronage of the King is a fantastic.
It is. It's good as well. Yeah, and of course the National Garden Scheme. Founded back in 1927. I mean, it does so much to raise obviously lots of money for charity. So I suspect that's another good reason to get the King behind it as well. And interesting, isn't it? We also found out in the last few weeks that the RHS have a new patron in the form of the King, and one of our compost suppliers, Melcourt.
Melcourt as well. They've got the royal seal as well.
So it's all good news.
Well, I mean, we've known for a long while King Charles is a very keen gardener and loves
very
his
hands-on.
hedge laying, and his Highgrove is a fantastic example of a nice big garden.
Yes, indeed.
He's got some wonderful ideas about how you should garden. So
indeed,
good stuff.
Yeah,
cool. And I suppose middle of the show.
Yes.
Well, a bit over the middle of the show, but anyway.
Yeah.
Top 5 bedding plants this time of year now, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I thought so. This is quite interesting because this is actual sales of bedding plants per se, but it's a mixture of pots and 6-packs. So, because of the way our computer systems run, I thought, well, let's just get a snapshot of what's been doing well since the beginning of the year. So. Although there is a bit of a fly in the ointment, we've got Hedera mixed outdoors in there, which
ivy.
An ivy, which is ivy, which obviously we sell a lot during the the autumn, winter, and early spring period.
So are they mail order ivy plants in there, or is that bedding ivy?
That's bedding ivy, yes.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, Chris, what's in the top 5?
Number 5 is petunia mixed carry pack. So,
okay.
So these you'd use in your hanging baskets, your pots. A nice mixture of real Writer's colour of F1 hybrids.
Brilliant.
At number 4, we've got geranium ivy trailing. So these are the balcony. These are the Swiss, what I call the Swiss geraniums. These are
the lovely trailing
tumbling ones.
Yeah.
Good drought tolerance as well, so great for your hanging baskets.
Okay.
At number 3, we've got hedera mixed outdoor mixture. So these are plants you'd use for your winter, spring, and your summer containers. If you want to put some evergreen,
so ivy.
Ivy, basically, yes.
Fair enough. Good stuff.
And usually in the pack, you usually get a nice mixture of varieties as well.
Yep.
At number 2, we've got geranium zonal. This is in a bigger pot, so this is more of an instant plant. Single flowers, double flowers. Often in a wide range of colours, and a lovely sort of zonal flashing to the leaf, a real distinct leaf to it as well.
Okay.
And
what's number 1? What's our best selling bedding plant?
Drum roll at this time of the year is zonal mixed again, but in a pack of them. So
okay. So packs out sell pots.
Pots, volume wise, and obviously, you've got extra plants there for doing your major displays where you're wanting lots of colour. And of course, geraniums are following a trend. Good drought resilient plants. If we hit a hot summer, these are the plants to go for.
And that brings us on to what we need to be getting on with.
Yes.
Are we too late to be planting vegetables?
Not at all. No, we've got plenty of opportunities. Yes.
That's good. I haven't really got around to it. I did an experiment last month, Chris.
You did?
Tea or not tea? Tea or water. So basically I had I planted 6 peas, 3 of which I'd soaked in tea, 3 of which I hadn't.
Right.
I had 6 runner beans, 3 with, 3 without, and 6 sweet corn, 3 with, 3 without. Put them in a conservatory in a propagator. I think I cooked them.
Oh no.
They were kept moist.
Yes.
However, have a guess how many plants I had come up.
Is it going to be all of them or
2 sweet corn? Out of everything I planted, only 2.
Goodness me.
I was a bit depressed. Freya had given me a hand planting them all up, and we were all keen. She wrote all the labels out for me.
Gosh,
only 2 sweet corn came up. So that's why I'm asking, is it too late to plant my veg? I need to get
the right answer is there's plenty of time. Or buy your little plug plants. Which
I was going to get some plug plants in, I think, just so I can start my gardening, because I was just like, no. But does temperature stop if it gets too warm? Because we had such a wonderful weekend a couple of weekends ago back, and
that was the problem.
Inside the conservatory, inside the propagator, so
you probably hit 35, 40 degrees
at least. I should imagine. So
you've got to be really careful. I mean, a lot of vegetables will germinate at sort of 15 to 20 degrees. So
I'd have been better just to have them in the house.
On a windowsill,
not particularly in the sunshine, in the extreme heats of the conservatory.
As soon as they're germinated, then get them into your conservatory where there's maximum light to give them that little bit of a boost. But you've got to be a little bit careful on the front there. But
every year's is a learning year.
It's I mean, traditionally, this month of June can be quite tricky. I mean, if we do get a bit of moisture around, if we can obviously artificially irrigate, we're fine, aren't we? We can get lots of seeds in still. I mean, things like peas, beans, you've still got time.
Okay.
It's direct sowing now, isn't it? So, if you want some marrows in, you don't need to necessarily put them in, start them off. You get a nice bit of soil in the garden, maybe put a little cloche over the top to get the seed germinated, but you can do them straight, broadcast them directly where you want them to grow, so that will help. And then obviously succession with your lettuce, your radish, your spring onions, keep those going too.
Yep, plant another crop of those if you've got some that are grown in the first place.
Indeed, that would be useful. And really, with all seed, I suppose this month is a matter of maintaining and making sure that there's plenty of moisture available, and thinning crops out as well, isn't it?
Yep.
I'm terribly overzealous with my carrots. I was looking at my carrots I'd sown in my raised beds, and I obviously
a bit too closely planted, were they? they?
Just a bit.
Oh, dear.
So I need to be very careful removing those because, of course, when you thin carrots, that is the trigger for the carrot root fly. So
Yeah, because it releases all the smells, and that's what the carrots root fly like, isn't it?
So I've got.
But there's a mesh you can put over carrots, isn't there?
There is, yeah. A bit of Enviromesh is the product. Yeah, that's really useful. Or what I might do, what I use to deter the squirrels from my bulbs, a bit of garlic juice in some water, and I might spray over my carrots when I do that, just to try and deter the carrot fly, if that becomes a problem.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I suppose the other big job really is weeding, isn't it? Keeping that hoe going. I have to say, we've the Day household invested in a product which I have to say I'm ashamed I bought, but it was on a whim.
Right,
and that was one of so it's an electric weed killer. So it's one of
these burning tools.
Yes,
is it like a heater or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, shall we say very unsuccessful.
Right.
And I don't know how much in electricity it costs to run. It's 2,000 watts, so it's like running a...
Okay.
Yeah, so I put my hands up. It was probably not the best buy. It seemed a good idea at the time, sort of product to go
so
for.
It burns the surface off, and then the roots grow back. It grows new shoots and leaves fairly soon afterwards.
If it's annuals, it does a good job. However, perennials not so good. But its effectiveness was... I tried it on a whole wide range of weeds in one of my borders, and it was very, very mixed results. So I'm afraid I won't be using that.
Fork is still the way forward.
I think so. Yeah, there you go. There's a submission on the podcast.
Well, you have to try these things, Chris. If it was successful, then we could be raving about it.
And of course, the initial part is it does burn, and obviously you get the smell of the vegetation, which is quite strong. But when nothing happens after that, and the plant still continues to grow, you do feel a bit deflated. So,
never mind. Sorry to hear about that, Chris.
No worries. I'll get the therapy.
Yeah,
I'll get the fork out as well. But yeah, carrying on with the veg. I mean, yes, keep the seed sowing going there, and also if you've got some gaps in your borders, some hardy annuals like we mentioned about, things like nasturtiums, cornflowers, all those things could be sown still. Get those in there, calendulas and such like. June traditionally is when you can plant out with the fear of frost has gone, so I know a lot of people tend to wait at the garden centre here to put their marrows, courgettes and things in until June. So do that and just make sure that the soil's prepared well as well. I mean, an observation, I don't know if you found on your allotment that the soil is quite hard because we've had so much rain. It's sort of panned the surface.
Well, certainly when I was turning it over, I'd like to say it breaks up into clumps, sort of tennis ball size normally. This year it seems to be coming up as whole clumps, like a spade size in width. I mean, big heavy lumps this year, but
I think that's a general observation. I think it's especially on clay soil, so it might be worth just running the fork over before you do any seed sowing or any planting. Initially, break it. Do that first. That's the hard work, and then the planting will be a lot easier, and you possibly then won't damage the roots of the plants you're putting in. So that would be
good idea.
A bit of advice on that side. And then obviously everything
earthing up.
A bit of earthing. Yes, that has to be done, doesn't it? Or
carrying on with the earthing up,
topping up if you've got them in pots. Your potatoes.
Good point. Yep.
A bit of compost there, and obviously a bit of feed. So I always think with potatoes in pots, it has to be a tomato feed, same family. So
Solanums, aren't they?
Yep. So they would be okay on that side. And also feeding generally. So if you've got your plants, your aubergines, your peppers growing well now, they've been in for at least a month, that's when you need to start supplementing your compost with a bit of feed. So have a weekly or... Some people
if we take Jekka's rule of thumb, Friday feeding, isn't
feeding
it?
Friday, yeah. For me, it's Thursdays, but because that's every other weekend I'm
it's
working.
Easier on your day off,
because I've got a lot of pots to do that. But yes, a high potassium feed for your fruiting crops, and then obviously for your leafy crops, something high in nitrogen. So something like Miracle Grow would be useful just to give them a little bit of a boost.
Great,
on that side as well. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have already got their hanging baskets up, but still time to get those planted.
The drop-ins are in, aren't they?
They are.
I need to get mine done. I haven't done them yet.
I think we've got another delivery imminently, and then that's it. I mean, they've gone incredibly well again. They're such a good doer, aren't they? And such good colour combinations too, which is good there as well. one thing I'm going to be doing this weekend, hopefully, is getting my houseplants out into the garden, into a bit of shade, giving them a bit of a holiday.
Give them some breeze in between their leaves.
Yes, indeed.
Freshen them up.
But to give them a little bit of shade, though, don't put them in full sun, because obviously they've never been used to full sun, even in a sunny windowsill. It's obviously the light comes through.
That's true,
yeah.
So if you're taking your citrus plants outside, or I mean, you probably shout at me for doing this, Chris, but I quite often take my orchids out in the summer and it's raining.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Because I always think it's easier than dusting them. It gives them a wash and
absolutely fine. Yes, and temperature-wise, then it's going to be good, isn't it? It's going to be very what they're used to in their natural habitat.
That's good to hear. I'm doing something right.
And then obviously just getting the secateurs out, isn't it? And doing a bit of general pruning.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in. June is the time we can start thinking about pruning our stone crops, so our peaches, apricots, cherries, plums and gages. If we have to do a little bit of trimming back, maybe to shape or to encourage maybe to shape, isn't it, to keep the plants nice and compact. And you can see that where the fruits are, so you don't want to be cutting into wood where you've got fruits, but at least give you an idea, and the plants will benefit from that. And remember the adage, when you do a prune, you should do a feed as well to balance the equation, so that would be good too.
Okay.
What else have we got there? Oh yeah, well I was saying slugs and snails. They've been obviously an issue through last month. Certainly causing me a few
Whenever the
headaches.
rain comes out, they seem to do well.
Yeah, so make sure your preparations are out. A lot of people have been trying obviously copper tape around their pots successfully this year. So
don't forget to buy them a pint of beer. They always like that in a nice beer trap.
Yeah, good waste of beer, mind you, but never mind. Potentially, or any sugary drink actually will do the job, won't it? As well, So that would be good. And obviously the use of products like Slug Gone is good with a bit of these wool pellets are very useful on certain plants. I've tried it around my delphiniums and my lupins over the years, and it's worked really well. If it's worth putting, and of course coffee grounds is the other good usage of to deter them too. So on there. I'm sure after no mow May, your lawn will need a bit of TLC. So get the mow out. Make sure it's on a fairly high setting before you go over there, and maybe give it a little bit of TLC, a bit of liquid feed perhaps, rather than a granular feed.
Okay.
Yeah. So plenty to be doing there, and obviously just try and de-stress your plants by keeping them well watered, well fed. I think that's going to be the key as we go into the summer months now.
Well, certainly. I mean, I know. I've talked about it before. The box plants that are struggling at the moment, and I saw my first box leaf caterpillar, or at least I think it was. It was about inch
that'd be
or so long, green with a black head.
Yeah,
there we go. And it's utterly devastated another hedge around us. It's really interesting that on the walk to school there's only one hedge now remaining
I know.
out of all of the box sort of hedges on my walk to school. It's terrible.
I was spraying with a caterpillar killer the other day on one of my box hedge parts, because I could see the first signs on one of the corners, and I went into the shed and got some spray out. It's going to be a battle, I think, this summer.
Well, it's obviously so sad, because box is such a slow-growing plant, isn't it?
Yes, comparatively.
One of my neighbours has got a hedge that I don't know, must be 6-8 foot tall, and so you can imagine how old the plants are in that. Utterly dead.
Devastated. But I mean, there is sort of good news on the front that there are obviously bacteriums you can use. I think in a way, blight was always treatable in a way. There's ways and means around it. I think with caterpillar, it's just sort of full on now. We really are struggling to keep up with the progression of the caterpillar across the UK, so it is hitting there. But the Euonymus Green Spire and Jean Hugues, which we've been selling at the garden centre, has been selling very well. We're getting so many people now with the plight of what do I replace my box with. So they are, to the point where we just keep selling out, and I'm sure other garden centres and nurseries are finding the same. So be patient, because these plants generally are grown over in Holland, and they're grown as crops, and we'll have to wait our time till the autumn,
until next year.
Which will be a good time to get them planted anyway now, as we're into the warmer part of the year.
Cool. Okay. Something I spotted we missed, Chris. British Flower Week, 3rd to the 9th of June.
Indeed.
And obviously on the 15th we've got our next guest,
We've got Jessica Naish coming to join us from the well, it is literally down the road from Buckingham, who started her flower farm a few years ago and is going from strength to strength. So we'll be really have a nice.
Well, it'll be an interesting. It's a very interesting chat with her, isn't it? Sort of learn a little bit about plants to grow and also how to grow, how to arrange plants, and some ideas on sort of what works well together, isn't it?
Indeed, and an appreciation that the flowers from the farm, which Jessica is part of the membership, is a growing tour de force of British horticulture now.
Yeah,
so
I had no idea there were even British flower growers in this country. No. I suppose my ignorance, really, but it's the flowers from the farm is it's just a listing of sort of different flower growers. So if you're after specific types of plants, you can go and get them from them.
Yeah, they've got a good website, and you've got a good resource there as well. So that'll be something to look forward to later on this month.
Excellent. Well, thanks as always, Chris, for pointing me in the right direction of what I need to be getting on with and telling us about what's on in the news.
Thank you. Yeah, and here's to the rest of June.
Definitely, and more sunshine and barbecues.
That's what sounds good.
I'm looking forward to. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.